right around. Happy election day. Here we are, right? 2/3 of the way through the semester. We've got basically 5 weeks to go. And then the finals. We've got, let's see, I think we've got 4 modules left basically, and then a unit on federal taxes and state taxes. I'll show you how to file both of those. And then your final exam, and you'll be off to Mr. Wags for Gov. So real quick, I want to go through Module 11, in case you didn't get a chance to do that. As I told you last week, we pushed everything back basically a week. So you can see that you had 2 weeks to complete this module. I did the same here with Module 12 that we'll go over the second half of class today. You can see the due date there is the 16th, the Monday before Thanksgiving. So, you know, everything really basically pushed back a week, but in essence, it still stays the same, right? So from today, basically, actually yesterday would be the official date, November 2nd, all the way through December 18th, anything in this quarter, you can turn in all the way through for full credit. It's just on those Monday due dates, right? November 9th, November 16th, November 23rd, they'll start showing up in Aries, all right? But it's the same deal that we've had all the way through the quarter. So just keep everything consistent. That's the most equitable thing to do. Go ahead and open up your Canvas to this course in Module 11 if you want. We'll go over that real quick. We will then talk about the second investment tool that you'll have in your game, which is bonds. You know, the market was down 2 days ago. I think on Friday, which would be 2 days ago that it was open, it was down 400 points. It's up 600 points this morning, right? In terms of the election, bonds would be one of the most stable places to put some money in, and I'll show you how to do that bond. We'll talk about different types of bonds, and then Module 12 will be about supply. So we'll talk about supply and demand, as well as bonds in your investment. Make your 2 trades for the week, and we'll be done. So go ahead and open up to Module 11. And just to make sure I didn't miss you when you came in, no David yet? No Caitlin yet? No Ben yet? No Will? Areli? Okay. Oh, there's David. So David just came in. Still no Caitlin. Still no Ben. Still no Will. There's Lopez. Okay. So a couple of things that I want to start with. I'm going to go through Module 11 real quick and go over with you what you need to have done by next Monday. We'll talk about bonds, and then we'll talk about supply. One of the things that I want to bring up to you, though, is if you remember back a couple of units, and let me bring this up because this will help clarify for you what we're looking at. If we take a look at, let me get to, I'm trying to think of the best example here. It's not that one. what's that? Here it is. Let's do this. This will be the easiest. Let me use this as an example. Okay, so the next two units we have are basically demand and supply. And I want you to think back to the second unit. And in the second unit, remember, we talked about circular flow models and how things work. Well, what I want you to realize is that when we talk about demand, for the most part, we're talking about consumers. Okay, we're talking about myself, you, your family. You're generally the ones where demand comes from. When we talk about supply, we're talking about the goods and services that businesses or firms are willing to produce and then supply. And so you want to think of it from that point of view. Demand, think of it as the point of view of households. And then I want you to think of firms from the point of view of supply. And that will make this a little bit easier. So when we talk about supply and demand, let me move into here. And as I said, we'll go real quick. Demand is simply understand the consumer's buying decisions, right? We as consumers basically take our money and we vote with our dollars. We talked about that in terms of the free enterprise system that we have here. So demand is the quantity of a good that consumers are willing and able to purchase at various prices during a given period of time. So it'd be similar to the vending machines that you have on campus, right? Most drinks are $1. If you had a vending machine that offered drinks for $2, you probably would have fewer people buy the drinks that cost $2 than you do, right, the drinks that cost $1. That's pretty simplistic. We can represent this graphically through a curve, or we can represent it with math using a demand schedule, and I'll show you that. And then basically the law of demand states, look, as prices of a good or service go up, you're going to have fewer and fewer people buy them. And that is just the way that that goes. So when we look at the law of demand, right, and this here we could use for sundaes, so ice cream sundaes. And basically what it tells us, right, is that as the price of ice cream sundaes goes up, you can see that the number of people that buy is less, right? Number of people that buy is less. So again, if you have, right, the price of a product go up, you can see that the number of people who buy that product is really going down. Because at 60 cents, we have 14 people buy sundaes. At $1.80, we only have 2 people. And that's what the law of demand says. Simply, there are going to be fewer and fewer people buy products as the price goes up. And as I said, you want to keep this in mind as something very simple. So take the vending machines on campus. Vending machines on campus, if there were sodas for $1, more people would buy sodas for $1 than if there was a machine that sold sodas for $2, right? Why would you spend $2 when you could buy it for $1? So we can represent this such a way as in math, or we can graphically represent that. And all this is basically, right, is 1/4 of your math graph. And we've talked about that before. So all of these in econ, right, are basically a math graph with your origin right there. We've talked about that before, right? So 0, 0 is your origin. And then what you have is 2 columns, one that illustrates price, and that's always going to be over here on the left, and one that illustrates the quantity demanded. And that's going to be down here at the right or at the bottom. So this is the quantity demanded down here at the bottom, right? Same illustration that you have there. So when you look at that, right, you can see all this is the points off of the demand schedule, right? At 60 cents, we had 14 sundaes bought. At 80 cents, we had 12. At $1, we had 10. $1.28, $1.40, we had 6, $1.64, At $1.82, if the Sundays go up to $2, we don't sell any. So we can take the law of demand and create a schedule for that. So that is for one Sunday shop. If we take all of the Sunday shops, for example, in Orchid, this is what you get. That's the difference between demand and market demand. Market demand is the demand for an entire area, not just for one specific store. So here at $1.80, we actually had 2,000 purchased for the month in the city of Orchid or Santa Maria. 80 cents, we had 12,000 Sundays purchased. So all it is a larger representation of the same thing for Sundays, except in an entire area. Now, there are different things that determine demand, right? So new iPhone 12 comes out, right? That is a change in consumer attitude, right? Brand new iPhone, better camera, 5G network compatibility, right? You also have things like people getting a job when they get out of college. Generally, your salary is more than. So you can have a change in income. You can have the change of a complementary price of a product. So generally, we think of eggs and bacon going together for breakfast. We think of cream cheese and bagels going together. A substitute product, you could substitute margarine for butter or butter for margarine. And so when you have changes in these things, it will affect demand, right? And you have two types of goods. You have normal goods, inferior goods. Normal goods are goods for which demand goes up as income goes up. These are generally larger priced items, dishwashers, washing machines, cars, houses. Inferior goods are goods for which demand goes down as income goes up. So those would be things that would affect that. Changing attitudes, as we said, you'll see this most of the time in clothing and music. Change in the price of substitute products, butter, margarine, CDs, tapes, things that you could easily replace one for another. If you took a look at butter and margarine, generally there's a difference in taste, but in terms of cooking, right, there is a little difference to that. So if all of a sudden, you know, not to be completely horrible, but let's say a hurricane wipes out all of the cattle that produce dairy in the Midwest, right? And all of a sudden we don't have access to their dairy products, right? You're going to see the price of butter skyrocket because there's just no dairy available. That means more people would start to buy margarine because the price would remain relatively lower for the first little bit. Change of a price of a complementary product, automobiles and gasoline, paper and pen and pencil, television, electricity. And generally what happens is when we have these changes due to one of these four things, you'll see overall changes in demand. And so decrease in demand will always shift the curve left. A decrease in demand, shift the curve left, increase will shift it right. And this makes sense, right? If you look at, let me draw this out, right? If you look at a curve, right? So here is our, right? And we've got price here. If we have a demand curve here, right? The origin is 0, 0. So if we have a decrease in demand, it always makes sense, right, that this curve is going to move this way because it's closer to 0. Meaning then, right, that you're going to have a curve that looks something like that. If you have an increase in demand, the curve is going to move to the right because that's farther away from 0. So just simple math when we look at it that way. Questions so far? All right. And that's illustrated here, right? You have a decrease in demand, it's going to move closer to 0. You have an increase in demand, it's going to move farther away from 0, right? So if you look at it this way, right, a decrease closer to zero, an increase, you're moving farther away from zero. All right. There isn't too much on your test, but I wanted to put this in here. How responsive a good is to a change in price in terms of demand is called elasticity. And so basically elasticity just measures how responsive demand is to a change in a product's price. And so if it's greater than 1, it's elastic demand, like a rubber band, very, very stretchy. If it hardly changes at all, be something very stiff, it's inelastic. And if it changes in unison, right? If it changes in unison, it would be unitary. If the price goes up 3% and demand goes up 3%, it's unitary. If it goes down 3% and the price is also matched in going down 3%, it's unitary. Generally, the number of substitute products available make things responsive or less responsive to a change in price, right? With butter and margarine, you really only have generally one substitute product. So that's going to help to determine how elastic something is. The importance of the product in the consumer's budget. The example I always use here is if you live in Arizona in the summer, you live in Minnesota in the winter, right? It doesn't matter what heating oil costs in Minnesota. It could go up 25% in the winter. When it's 10 below zero, you need that heating oil, right? When Arizona had over 140 days over 100 degrees, you need air conditioning. Doesn't matter what that is going to cost you, you're going to pay for it. So it's the importance, right, of the product and also the time period considered, right? If heating oil changes a bunch in the summer in Minnesota, it doesn't matter. And then also how much of a substitute product would be available. All right, so when we get here, on this assignment here, you've got population increasing, right? With more people, generally there's going to be more demand. So in this assignment, all you're going to do is demand increase, decrease, or stay the same. In this example, right, you would probably have that as an increase. And the reason being more people, more goods and services. Population goes down, you probably have that as a decrease, right? Less people to buy things. So that is the first assignment that you had to do for this unit here. You see it's not available or not due until next Monday. The Kahoot is also available after you do the case study. So the case study is just a simple thing on demand. You're 23 years old, you're looking to buy a brand new car. You're not going to be able to pay cash, so you plan on financing the vehicle with an auto loan that has a 4% interest rate. You plan to sell your Toyota Camry on Craigslist to get the down payment for the loan. You're going to dealerships today and you need to understand about depreciation, right? Our data shows that cars lose more than 10% of their value during the first month after you drive off the lot. The amount your car is worth will just keep falling too. According to the current depreciation rates, the value of the new vehicle can drop more than 20% after 12 months of ownership. The next 4 years, you can expect your cars to lose roughly 10% of value annually. That means a new car can be worth as little as 40% of the original purchase price after 5 years. Luxury cars and cars from certainly well-regarded mainstream brands can hold their value better. But when we talk about buying a car, especially a new one, those are things to consider. So the little section on demand in terms of whether it increases or decreases, the case study. This is the review game for demand, and then there's an assessment for that. All right, let's look at bonds real quick. Bring this up. Okay, so the second of three things that you can do, in your investment game is buying a bond. A bond is simply a way for companies and government agencies to raise money. So one of the things that you'll want to understand, right, when this school district built Pioneer Valley High School, when the school district built the tech building out east of 101, that was money from a bond. And basically what you do is you get people to invest, and it's generally a 25-year term, and after 25 years, they're going to get their investment plus interest back. So this is going to explain what a bond is, and then I'll show you how to trade one and look one up.
Are a common investment. However, to many investors, they remain a mystery. So let's explore what a bond is and how it might benefit your investment portfolio. A bond is simply a loan given to a company or government by an investor. By issuing a bond, a company or government borrows money from investors, who in return are paid interest on the money they've loaned. Companies and governments issue bonds frequently to fund new projects or ongoing expenses. Some investors use bonds in hopes of preserving the money they have, while also generating additional income. Bonds are often viewed as a less risky alternative to stocks and are sometimes used to diversify a portfolio. Consider this example. The city of Fairview wants to build a new baseball stadium, so it decides to issue bonds to raise money. Each bond is a loan for $1,000, which Fairview promises to pay back in 10 years. To make this loan more attractive to investors, Fairview agrees to pay an annual interest rate of 5%, which in the bond world is also known as a coupon rate. An investor buys the bond at face value for $1,000. Now, let's fast forward. Each year, the city of Fairview pays the investor $50. These regular interest rates continue for the length of the bond, which is 10 years. Once the bond reaches maturity, the investor redeems his bond, and Fairview returns his $1,000 principal investment. This bond was a good deal for both the city and our investor. Fairview got the money it needed to build the stadium. The investor received regular interest payments and the return of the original investment. Because a bond offers regularly scheduled payments and the return of invested principal, bonds are often viewed as a more predictable and stable form of investing. Compare regular payments of a bond to the experience of owning a stock. With stocks, profits and losses are driven by market forces and are generally less predictable. Of course, like any investment, bonds are not without risk. One risk that bond investors face is the possibility that the issuer defaults on paying back the principal. This is what is known as default risk. Typically, bonds with higher default risk also come with higher coupon rates. The amount of risk depends mostly on the financial stability of the issuer. For example, most governments are generally considered stable issuers and issue bonds with a relatively low coupon rate. Corporate bonds typically represent a greater risk of default, as companies can and do go bankrupt. That's why corporate bonds often offer a higher coupon rate. Several credit rating agencies assign rankings to different bonds. This can help bond investors to gauge the financial strength of the bond issuer. These ratings agencies often use different criteria for measuring risk. So it's a good idea to compare ratings when considering a particular bond. And keep in mind, rating agencies aren't always accurate. So be sure to research a bond and its risks thoroughly before investing. Another risk to consider is interest rate risk. This is the risk that interest rates will go up, and any bonds you own will be worth less if sold before the maturity date. After all, when interest rates rise, more investors allocate their money into the new, higher interest rate bonds. If you wanted to unload a low interest rate bond to take advantage of these new rates, you would have to sell your bond at a discount to make it a worthwhile purchase for another investor. Capital preservation and income generation are just two ways bonds might be part of a diversified portfolio. Many investors use a mix of stocks and bonds to pursue their investment goals. And because bonds move differently from stocks, they can help increase or protect portfolio returns. Keep in mind that this discussion showed you one simplified way that investors might use bonds, and only a few of the risks to consider. Like all investments, bonds are complex and have a variety of uses and risks. Before you invest in bonds, it's important that you invest in your own financial education.
Okay, so bonds are relatively a safe investment. There is still some risk involved. Let me bring up the stock market game and we can check out how everyone is doing. Pretty good day today so far, starting out. Alrighty, so period one, you can see I'm almost down 1,000. Group 3 looks like you are in second place. Group 5, it looks like you're in first place. So, as I said last week, it was down quite a bit. You can go to your portfolio, remember, go to account holdings, and you can check and see where your stock is doing well, or where it's doing not so well. Tesla down 6% since I bought it. Looks like Harley Davidson is down 10% since I bought it, so that's not good. One of the things that you can do, you can see that I've got 80% of my investment money, cash, still available. So if you go to trade, enter a trade, and you go to a bond trade, this is what you can do in terms of looking for a bond. So one of the things that you can do is search under bond symbol. You can search corporate bonds or municipal bonds. You can also search government bonds. Corporate bonds would be for corporations. All right. So here are treasury bonds for the government. As he said, the more A's they have, the better the rating. So AAA is better than AA. If you went to and looked, my computer's freezing. See if I can get it to unfreeze. No, having a hard time. Okay, there, I think I got it unfrozen. Okay, so let's say I want to search corporate bonds, all right? Search all the corporate bonds, letter A, right? So you can see American General Corp, right? Any of these ones here that are Bs, where you have the Standards and Poor rating, these Bs are lower than the As. The A minus is lower than the AA minus. You can search, right, by letter. So let's say you have a favorite company. A lot of you bought stock in Pepsi. Let's see if Pepsi has any. Corporate bonds. My thing isn't letting me go. It doesn't look like. There's a pharmaceutical corporation, Pacific Bell. Those are pretty lowly rated. This A plus is a good bond, 2.65%. That is a good rating. So let's say that you wanted to buy that bond, right? If you clicked on trade, I don't know why it stopped showing you that. If you click on trade, it'll automatically put that in there for you. And I'm going to take $10,000, all right, of my cash and put it in that bond, all right? You want to make sure that you click buy just like you do with a stock. You can preview the bond, right? And then you can confirm that, all right? Then you can confirm that. So again, if you go to trade, enter a trade, go to bond trade, you click buy, and then you want to find what you want. Now, if you want a municipal bond, used to live in Arizona, so I can search municipal bonds. I can search by city, right? Arizona Board of Regents, they're the ones that run Arizona State University, Northern Arizona, and the other universities in that state. right? You have the Arizona State Lottery AA bond, 5% coupon rate, pretty good, right? And so you can choose a municipal bond if you want. AA ratings are very, very good. AAA is better than AA. This is Arizona Water Infrastructure. So if you wanted to trade that, all you do is click on trade, select buy, and put in a dollar amount, maybe only 5,000 for this bond. So water is pretty valuable there, especially after the Central Arizona project was finished in the 80s. So your group will make 2 bond trades today. You can go to even government bonds if you want. So if you click on government bonds, these are basically U.S. Treasury bonds that you buy from the federal government. So you can click here. Obviously, they're all highly rated by Moody, right? Because it's the federal government. You would want to find the best coupon rate. So 3.38 looks like that might be kind of the highest. 6.5 is a good rate. You could click on trade there, click on buy, and you could put in a value amount, say 5,000, preview your bond trade. So your group is going to make 2 trades, and you're going to do 2 bonds. You can do any bond type that you want. So it's enter a trade, bond trade, buy, go to bond symbol, select any corporate bonds that you want. So maybe corporate bonds with a K, Key Corp, Key Bank, what have you. If you want to, you can go to municipal bonds. So if you want to go to state of California, search municipal bonds. See Allen Hancock right there, right? That is our area there, Allen Hancock. A bond, maturity date is 2024.
We can't see your other screen.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on my computer. You see that now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So again, I don't know why it keeps stopping. This is ridiculous. Maybe part of the game. Computer's not doing very well. So trade, enter trade, bond trade, buy, bond symbol. You can search, as I said here, I search government bonds. Those are the treasury bonds. Your municipal bonds by state. You see Allen Hancock came up. So Allen Hancock is there. You can see there's over 30 pages of bonds here. Bakersfield School District, Azusa Water, Banning, Bonita, Berkeley, right? You can go through a whole bunch of those and see what you want to do. But you have two bonds that you need to buy. And so I'll put you into your breakout room and walk you through that. All right, group 1, period 1. Tate, Cole, Crystal, there's David right here. Group 2, Antonio, Luis, Tony. Okay, so you're going to make 2 trades with your group. Both of them have to be bonds this time, so you'd have to do buys. Okay, so real quick, I just want to make sure that you can see that. If you go to trade, enter a trade, you're going to go to bond trade. You're going to do this twice. You're going to buy. You're going to click bond symbol and then choose you want. Do you want a company bond? Do you want a state or a city bond? Or do you want a government bond? These would be the safest. These would be the next safest. Corporate bonds would be the riskiest. You want to get as many A ratings as you can with the highest coupon percentage as you can. You can select anything that you want. So if you go to G, you see GE Capitals. All you have to do is click on the trade. It'll automatically enter that in there for you. Put buy, put the dollar amount, not the number of shares. So if you wanted to do $1,000 with this, preview the trade, confirm that, and then make sure that it shows up in your transaction notes. Once it shows up in your transaction notes, right, you'd be set. You need to make 2 trades. All right, real quick, just so you know how to do that, you're going to go to trade, enter a trade. You're going to go to bond trade, and then you want to click buy, and then go to bond symbol. There's 3 different types of bonds. There's a corporate bond, which is a company bond. That's the riskiest. Municipal bonds would be about medium security, medium safety in terms of investments. That would be state or city. Or school boards, things like that. And then government bonds would be the safest. So all you have to do would be to click on a letter. Let's see if we've got any L companies we might be interested in. Lowe's. Lowe's has a 6.88% bond. It's a triple B plus, which is not as good as these ones here, okay? This A from Louisiana Land and Exploration is actually a better rate and a better rating. So if you clicked on that, make sure that you click buy, put in a value, maybe $2,000, preview your bond, confirm your, let me confirm my password. All right, confirm that, and it gives you a transaction order number. When you go to transaction notes, you can see there, I executed that. It should be under pending orders right there, right? Should be under pending orders. You need to make 2 bond trades or buys today, and actually they would be buys because you haven't done any yet. Okay, real quick, you need to make 2 bond trades today. So again, it's trade, enter a trade, bond trade, go to bond symbol. You can search corporate bonds by letter. So you can see what comes up. You can search municipal bonds by state. You can see what comes up, or you can trade government bonds. And you can search through the U.S. Treasury. Now, U.S. government bonds are the safest. Municipal bonds, state and local, are generally the next safest. Corporate bonds are probably the riskiest, but generally have higher coupon rates to get people to buy them. Once you select a bond, all you have to do is click on trade. Remember to hit buy. You can put in a dollar amount. So I'm going to do 2,500. Preview the bond trade. Confirm with my password. When you're done, you can go to trade, pending orders, and you can see my 2 bond trades there. So you've got about 4 minutes and 20 seconds. You need to make 2 bond trades today. Alrighty, welcome back. Group 1 and Group 2, I saw one of your trades go through. Group 3, I saw that you had 2 of them. Group 1, your second one just showed up. Group 2, let's check yours. Perfect, you've got 2. Perfect, so everybody's got all their points there. We'll see how that goes. Go ahead and take 4 minutes, get a drink, go to the restroom, do whatever you need to do. We'll go through supply real quick, and we'll be done for the week. All righty, welcome back. We'll finish up, get you out of here. All right, so if we look at our picture, right, that we used in Unit 2 in terms of illustrating the circular flow model, demand was from the point of view of households, supply is going to be from the point of view of firms, right? Firms are the ones that make goods and services, right, and sell them to households. So firms make goods and services and sell them to households. Now, you need to remember that, and it's from their point of view, and this will make a little bit more sense for you. So in module 12, right, we'll go through supply, and you want to understand, as I said, this is from the point of view of firms and businesses. And their production and how much they produce helps to determine how much of a supply of a good or service available. So there is a supply schedule and supply curve, just like we had for demand, and it's very similar, except for because of the law of supply, it's going to slope differently than demand, and I'll show you that. You want to understand the relationship between price and quantity supplied. In fact, keep in mind, as I said, it's from the point of view of firms, right? So the more money they could sell a product for, the more likely they are to produce that product. Understand how production affects supply, and then supply does have price elasticity as well. So supply, as I said, is from the point of view of a firm or a business. You want to be able to explain the relationship between price and quantity supply, be able to describe how supply schedules and supply curves are created, and then understand that law of supply. And the law of supply simply states that as the price of a good or service goes up, firms and businesses are willing to supply more at the higher price than they are at the lower price. And that's why we're going to have a slope to that. The supply schedule is a simple table, again, shows the quantities of good or service that would be supplied by a firm at different prices. The supply curve is the graphic representation of that, and market supply would be the number of, say, Sunday suppliers in a specific area. So the law of supply, as we said, as goods are produced, firms and businesses will supply more of those goods at a higher price than they would be at a lower price. And that's because they can make more per good than they could at a lower price. A change in the quantity supplied is the change in the number of units made available for sale due to a price change. Price elasticity of supply measures how responsive supply of a good is to a change in price. And the change of in supply is the change of the number of units at that. So it is quite simple, again, and you can see that this here is similar to what we had with demand, except it goes in the same direction. You can see that as price goes on an increase, the number of Sundays that would be supplied also increase. So your slope is going to be different. If we have a, and let me draw the curve, right? If we have a supply curve, and remember that is just a graphic representation of 1 quarter. Price is on the left, quantity supplied is down here on the right. As the price increases, right, supply is going to slope in a different direction. Okay, remember demand was the other way. But as you get farther away from origin, right, 0, 0, we can see that $4, there's 160 supplied. That's going to be here on your curve. At $5, there's 180. Well, $5 and 180 is farther away from 0 than 4 and 160. So that's why supply moves in a separate direction. All right. So there you can see a supply curve. And once again, these points here match what's on the supply curve there. At $2, we have 120. At $2, we have 120 there. At $4, we have 160. Same thing that you see here. So supply schedule and supply curve are the same as the demand curve and a demand schedule. It's just based on the point of view of firms. And then as we said, when we take a look at supply, we also have this example of market supply. In this case, it's sandwiches. So instead of just one sandwich shop, it's all the sandwiches shops in the area. And that is what market supply is. All right. A change in the quantity supplied due to a change in price, you're going to have movement along the curve. So again, this is market supply, right? Market supply is all of the sandwich shops in an area. Businesses create goods and services to make money, right? Businesses create goods and services to make money. So production does have an effect on supply, right? If your factors of production go up, they're going to have to charge more for a good or service. They're going to have to charge more for a good or service. Remember, your factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Now, what businesses are worried about is how much they get per product. And so one of the things that they need to determine is they need to look at the total revenue minus the operating cost. And so the reason that production affects supply is because it depends on how much something costs to produce. Marginal product of labor is the change in output of hiring one more worker, right? So does one more worker give you more return, less return, or does it even take away from your return? So examples of fixed costs and variable costs would be your production facility, property taxes, salaries, things that stay constant from month to month. Variable costs are going to be costs of inputs, raw materials, gasoline prices go up and down. Electricity each month goes up and down. Heating, you don't have to have that expense in the summer. And so when you look at all of this, right, businesses are concerned about total revenue minus operating costs because that gives them their profit. All right. Now, government can also have an effect on supply. So one of the things that has come up in the campaign, right, is this idea of farm subsidies paid to Midwestern farmers when Trump put his tariffs on goods coming from outside the country. So government can affect supply because they can put taxes or offer subsidies, thus raising the cost of a good or service or lowering the cost of producing a good or service. A subsidy is government payments to a business or market. They're often paid per unit. You saw these subsidies, World War II, September 11th, and now you've seen it in the time of the pandemic. Generally, subsidies lower the cost of making a good or service for businesses. Taxes generally add to the cost of producing a good or service. There's also regulation and future expectations in terms of the effect on production. So there's a number of different things that can happen. There is elasticity when you talk about supply, and that is simply how much does supply change due to a change in price. And generally, there's two reasons for a change in supply. Cost of inputs, which would be your factors of production, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, or technological changes that make it easier for you to produce your good or service at a lower cost. All right. In this one, there's 2 assignments plus your review and the assessment. So in this, reasons for a change in supply, basically,
We can't see.
you what?
We can't see.
Okay. Let me see if you can see it now. What about now?
Yeah, better.
Okay, thanks. So on this, you're going to read the following 7 newspaper articles and say, did supply increase, decrease, or stay the same? So Auto Workers Union agrees to wage and fringe cuts. That means the company is going to pay them less. The company is going to pay them less than they did before. That is going to lower the cost of production. Lowering the cost of production should increase the supply. And so on this, you start at C. It tells you in the direction. You start at C, but basically this one is going to be an increase. So it's going to go from C to D. Okay. And that's on formative.